Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where it is a super slow news day coming out of the Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. And Hollywood is still waking up, I guess you could say. Also, there are no huge movies coming out this weekend, for which I think a studio wants to put an amazing trailer in front of. So that's also kind of contributing to a lack of movie news. Also, though, one of you forwarded me a news story about how the studios are freaking out a little bit that perhaps summer 2016 won't be as successful as they had hoped. But I wouldn't say that just yet. I think there are some really great movies on the horizon. This is just, I think it's just a little scary right now because it's coming out of Memorial Day weekend, and again, there's not any big buzzworthy movie hitting theaters this weekend. Just wait till The Conjuring 2 comes out, and Central Intelligence and Finding Dory's on the horizon. We have a lot of good movies coming up. But for today's episode of Morning Movie News, I was, I'm not going to lie, it was a little difficult to find stories. However, the movie gods smiled on me once again and delivered a beauty courtesy of The Hollywood Reporter, which delivered their story courtesy of, I think, the Radio Times out of the UK. And that is that Barbara Broccoli, who runs the Bond franchise, and her family has since the beginning of the Bond movies, is circling in on a director. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about who will play the new James Bond since Daniel Craig has been like, I'm not going to do it. I don't care how much you pay me. And they certainly waved a lot of money in front of him. But while people have been talking about Tom Hiddleston suddenly as the frontrunner, which, as we've discussed, I think is a horrible idea, Tom Hiddleston's night manager director has emerged as the potential favorite to direct him in said Bond movie. And what's really fascinating is that is a female director. Susanne Bier, she is a Danish filmmaker, and she is a very controversial choice. All right, so let's take a closer look at Ms. Bier, shall we? So The Night Manager has certainly captured a lot of people's attention. I stopped watching it because I felt that it was pretty boring. I know some people who finished it and said that it had a very strong finish, and I did like the first episode quite a bit. So there is potential there. It's also very handsome visually as a film, and I think that the sophisticated elegant visuals that Bier brings to The Night Manager do mimic what Mendes did with his Bond movies that were so popular. Although Sam Mendes, of course, was copying the style of Christopher Nolan for his Bond films. So this all stems from Nolan. I would like to point out, though, that Daniel Craig's James Bond was so popular because of Casino Royale. And Casino Royale had a classic Bond director, Martin Campbell, who directed a number of Bond movies over the years with a number of Bond actors. And he was a very safe choice for Casino Royale, and he actually ended up, I think, doing the best job in the bunch. So I don't know if I was going to introduce a new Bond, I would go with a new director. Maybe I would bring back Martin Campbell and say, I need your classic Bond expertise here to make audiences really see this new talent as Bond. But I think they want to continue with the pseudo Nolanness that Mendes brought to the project, because of course that's the only time a Bond movie ever joined the $1 billion club. But I think, again, a lot of the strength came from Daniel Craig, and that was established thanks to Casino Royale. But anyway, what else has Bier directed? Well, Susanne Bier, wait till you hear this. It's like, seriously? All right, so remember Serena? That Jennifer Lawrence movie with Bradley Cooper, which was a period piece, and Bradley Cooper owned a logging operation, and Serena was supposed to be his crazy beautiful wife, and it really didn't get distribution here in the United States theatrically. That's the last movie she directed. So not exactly someone you'd be like, you want to helm a major franchise? She also did Things We Lost in the Fire, that horrible Halle Berry movie that was supposed to be an awards contender, but was not. So that's a pretty horrible pattern. So I would be very nervous. However, I would like to point out that Sam Taylor Johnson didn't do such a fantastic job with a lot of her work. Certainly did. I mean, she actually did better than Bier with her previous films. But Sam Taylor Johnson, who of course is married to Aaron Johnson, aka Marvel's Quicksilver. But anyway, while her track record wasn't great, I thought she really delivered with 50 Shades of Grey. So that's not to say that Bier can't step up to the plate and perhaps direct a fabulous Bond movie. As I said again, the visuals in The Night Manager were quite good, and if she has a good second unit director and a good cinematographer, and they write in some good action sequences, perhaps she'll be okay. But it's a very interesting choice. I do think, though, that I would also question recreating the Night Manager team in a Bond movie. So you'd have the Night Manager himself, Tom Hiddleston, and you'd have his director, Susanne Bier. I wonder if Hugh Laurie has his fingers crossed. He's like, do you need a new, someone to replace Christoph Waltz? I'll do it. I'll be Blofeld. He kind of plays in the Night Manager. But anyway, do you really want Bond to perhaps seem like a television venture, right? Being like, isn't this the Night Manager, but we're just calling him James Bond now? I mean, I don't know how I would feel about that. And also, if this movie doesn't do well, and if it is kind of weak and television-like, in a not a good way, what will that do to, the image of female directors? Like these first women stepping up to the plate have a lot of pressure on them. Patty Jenkins over at Wonder Woman. I mean, if they don't deliver, if their films seem lacking, it'll give pause to studio suits to hire women in the future. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I think this is not as sexy a combination as the potential idea of Tom Hardy reteaming with Christopher Nolan for a Bond movie. I think that would be sensational. I don't know why they aren't working aggressively toward that. Maybe those party. I mean, I talked about this before, and a number of you said that Tom Hardy really wants to be Bond. Maybe Nolan's like, I missed. Sam Mendes just ripped me off. What am I going to add to the franchise? But apparently, for some reason, that's not a top priority for them. They want to recreate the Night Manager. And then also, Jamie Bell was in discussions for a younger Bond, which I also think could have been potentially very interesting. Although it's still Tom Hardy and Chris Nolan are the best combination. Or I would go for something completely outside the box. I think even Idris Elba, even though Idris Elba is very busy these days, he's a much more interesting choice than just Tom Hiddleston. I think Tom Hiddleston is the worst person they could choose to take over for Bond. They could just throw a rock on a street in England and hit someone who I think would be a better choice than Tom Hiddleston. Okay, just to make that clear. All right, so that's the first story of the day, and I'm curious, for those of you who are Bond fans, how do you think the next film seems to be shaping up? And also, for those of you who like The Night Manager, do you want to see that become Bond, pretty much as it is? All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, the next two stories are Disney stories. So Disney, I talked last week or a week and a half ago about the live-action fairy tale movies that Disney has coming, and I said that the most likely to show up first would be the new Mary Poppins movie. And sure enough, yesterday Disney had a press release go out that say that Mary Poppins is indeed going into production soon, and it's officially set to come out Christmas 2018, Christmas Day. Now, you would think Christmas Day for a Mary Poppins film, hot damn, that's a good idea. That film's going to be successful for sure. But I would like to call your attention to a little movie, and it unfortunately was a little movie, called Into the Woods, which came out for Christmas 2014, released on Christmas Day. And that movie did not do particularly well. And I reference that because it's the same creative team, basically. Rob Marshall, who directed Into the Woods, is directing Mary Poppins Returns. That's the name, like Batman Returns or Superman Returns. That's hilarious. And Emily Blunt will star. Emily Blunt, of course, was Into the Woods. Now, I liked Into the Woods quite a bit, and I thought Emily Blunt was very good. And I think she's going to make a fantastic Mary Poppins. And Lin-Manuel Miranda will be joining them as the new Bert, as a street lamplighter named Jack. And he, of course, is coming off of Hamilton. Also, there's a lot of talk about In the Heights finally getting made into a movie, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is also contributing to the music for Moana. So he's very busy, and he's become a big Disney talent. But anyway, that movie did not do particularly well at the box office. It opened with just $31 million. It went on to make $128 million domestic for a Disney live-action fairy tale musical. That's not good. 85 only foreign, too, no less. So the movie did not deliver overseas. So that gives it a $213 million total. That is weak. But it was only made for a $50 million budget, to Rob Marshall's credit. So maybe he can make Mary Poppins Returns on the cheap, too. But just so you know what he has to live up to, the original Mary Poppins made $102 million in 1964. Adjusted for inflation, that is a domestic gross of $670 million, right? Like, domestically, even the top movies these days don't make that much money. They usually top out, it's very rare. They top out around 300, 400 million. So that's just how much money Mary Poppins made back in the day. So I think that the bar is raised very high. Now, to some degree, that's a bit of a safety net. Everybody loves Mary Poppins, and if they can capture that magic and, add new songs from, I believe only one Sherman brother is left, but to be able to, to add to that, maybe it'll work out. Maybe it'll work out. I'm not sure. Again, I liked Into the Woods quite a bit. I thought it was very good. I think Stephen Sondheim is not one of the most popular, writers of musicals out there. He's not as big a mainstream crowd pleaser as like the old favorites, like Rodgers and Hammerstein, Lerner and Lowe. Sondheim I think is a little bit more of an acquired taste. So that might be one of the reasons that it didn't do, Into the Woods didn't do quite as well. But I would be very nervous about that, and I would really need to see how this looks. I think that we're not going to get an idea for how successful this is going to be until we see a trailer or even a teaser and hear some of the songs from also, I think we need to know what it's going to be competing against Christmas 2018. So we'll see. Of course, Star Wars now comes out at Christmas time, so we'll see how they have to now Disney will be competing against itself. All right, so anyway, speaking of Star Wars, that's the third story of the day, and that is that Lawrence Kasdan, who co-wrote the Han Solo script with his son, has announced that will begin shooting in January. That is very soon. He has said that Phil Lord and Chris Miller are moving out to London, and once again, Star Wars movies shot in the UK. And so they're going to start rolling on that in January. So I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon you see Alden Ehrenreich in costume, which is basically just like the Han Solo outfit. Or maybe Han Solo doesn't start out wearing that. We'll see him decide to put on his classic outfit. But Alden Ehrenreich, as I said when he was cast, is such a different kind of person than Harrison Ford ever was, that I'm very curious to see how this movie works out. What gives me faith in it is that it's Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are just incredibly talented individuals. I've yet to see them make a bad movie. So we'll see what happens, but keep an eye out for that. I wanted to just put that on your radar, that you'll be seeing Han Solo news stories and more casting probably very, very soon. All right, so those are the three stories of the day, and I have a great viewer question from Sarah Christensen, and she asked this on Movie Math yesterday, and Sarah said, "Hi Grace, I have a question for you. How much does weather play a part in box office numbers? Memorial Day weekend here in the upper Midwest was hot, 80 degrees, and just 2 weekends prior we had snow flurries. Yes, I said snow. I know my family and I were outside every day catching up on yard work. We also went hiking and swimming in the lake of a state park that had open swimming. This is also the weekend that kicks off summer camping and to get boats out for the season." Sarah, you make it sound so wonderful. We did go see Alice Through the Looking Glass, but that was Monday night and the whole theater was empty. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please, please, pretty please, with chocolate sauce on top. Heart emojis. Sarah, I love your question. Yes, weather is incredibly important when it comes to the box office. Both bad weather, like for instance, you said it snowed sometimes. Well, you just had snow flurries, but when a big storm will hit a region of the country, particularly if it's a big movie-going region, Hollywood has to realize that they're going to have a threat to their box office. Also, when there's very good weather, very often people won't go to the movies. Now, Memorial Day weekend is a long weekend, so Hollywood hopes that you'll see one movie over the 3 days off, because, it's an air-conditioned movie theater and it's the beginning of summer. And I think that Hollywood has done a good job of making movies seem like an integral part of a summer experience, right? At least for a number of people. Of course, as we've discussed, most people only go to see one movie a month, if that. That's the general U.S. Citizen, right? Not like Hollywood, of course, makes its money on moviegoers who go every weekend for opening weekend, but that's why some movies will break out of the crowd, because they're able to spur the person who rarely goes to go. But anyway, back to your question, Sarah. When there's really nice weather, sometimes people won't go. That's why Labor Day weekend is not a big release date, because it's the last weekend of summer. And Hollywood realizes that everyone's like, I better get my summer activities in because I have to go back to work/school like full time, and summer will be over after this. So that's why Memorial Day weekend is a big box office time. It's not the case for Labor Day because of, just the timing. So yes, weather makes a very big difference. And I also think that if a movie is on the edge, on the cusp of whether or not people think it's good weather will persuade people not to go. And that might have been what the problem was for both Alice and X-Men Apocalypse. There was some question as to the quality of both films. And so people were like, you know what? I don't want to risk, I don't want to take a risk. I don't want to have a bad time at the movies. I'm just going to go experience the nice weather. So yes, weather is a huge factor in the box office. So always pay attention to storms. Hollywood certainly, does. And I would say that weather is a big influence, and also sporting events and like the Super Bowl, etc. Those things as well. Those will be things that factor into the box office. So good instinct, Sarah. Great question. And I hope you and your family had a nice time seeing Alice on Monday night. All right. Thank you, everybody. That's today's morning movie news. Please write down below, think of today's top 3 stories, Sarah's viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.